we hit the 2 p.m. turn, not a lot has changed. You got forces moving into place, cutting up through here. But Garland's force is pretty much evaporated. It's clear to the Union that there isn't anything there because they're only taking, you know, on the less than one fire table when they're in small arms range, which they are now, which means this thing started rolling core defense failures again. And they disintegrated 2 units in the last round. I know I could take it. The thing is, I'm shifting down. I don't know that I want to blow through there yet. But I think I do. I'd like to have a broader axis to my attack. So if I could send, you know, say this Sturgis's command and detach that division and send it through Fox's Gap, that would work really, really well for me. It would also clear up the continuous harassment of this artillery up here and give me a nice position from which to put artillery. Artillery here can actually trace down there. Up here I'm not so sure. Yeah, I think these guys can trace down too. So there's actual lines of sight from that part of the hill. There's other places on the board where being at the top of the hill means you still can't see anything because of these splash marks. That's a nice addition because, like I said, in Thunder you could command the board from, I think, even Big Round Top, which doesn't make sense. The lines of sight were considered too bad for it to be a position to put your guns on, if I recall correctly. Alright, got a lot of troops to position, so I may not be back this morning. I think I've got a lot of time. We're on the Union side of the 3 p.m. turn, and they were set up along the line here for firing along here. Now I noticed one weird thing. I had the 219 accidentally left behind. I noticed it because I tried to recover stragglers for it and couldn't find it over with the rest of its unit. Hey, sometimes weird shit happens in a battle. That part of the command just finally realized we're not supposed to be here and turned and marched to go follow its orders. I can live with stuff like that. That's kind of what the random events table does in some extent. There are weird mix-ups in a battlefield, and in this system it feels fairly resilient to it in a way that maybe things like musket and pike, I feel like I'm breaking something a little bit more because the formations feel more well-defined. Here they do tend to spread out and intermix with one another, etc. Anyway, this artillery pounded back and actually wrecked, I don't remember what the unit is, the 1K9 by taking out a second unit. Remember, I took a permanent hit on the cav to the 2K9 units, and that puts them fairly close to being wrecked. Only one regiment has to go, and in this case one has. It can recover stragglers eventually, but here's the problem. Last turn I knocked the 1 strength point off this gun, and now I get to shoot directly at the gun. And this is one thing that I like about this system as opposed to the GBA-CW system. This is CWB rules, basically. Is you fire, if you get infantry fire opportunity at an artillery piece like we have here where it's on top of the stack, you can't select artillery with infantry. You just do strength points of artillery with it. You're killing guns, essentially. That doesn't make sense, but it's a nice abstraction. GBA-CW puts, oh, you're killing the crew. And if you kill half the crew, you're half the value of the guns, no matter how many guns there were originally. That's just a bit of detail that I'm not even sure is particularly more realistic. Here what I'm viewing is, okay, I've knocked out some guns, probably the crew with them. Now I'm knocking out the crew for other guns. It doesn't just half the value of that gun if I shoot it with small arms fire and then wipe the gun out. There's always going to probably be some residual crew from small arms fire. There's going to be people hiding and protecting themselves. So knocking it out gun by gun in terms of crew makes sense. Even though you're not specifying, hey, is that guns or men that are being killed? It doesn't make a difference. The guns are going to be abandoned if there are no men to haul them around. Let's make a few changes to their plan as the 315 turn rolls in. I've pulled Anderson out of Fox's Gap entirely. I need to reinforce that hilltop up there. It doesn't look like the Union's coming up this way, but they could roll for an initiative and attempt to send a unit or even the whole 9th Corps up through Fox's Gap. That would be a serious blow. There's no question. It would also avoid Rhodes's unit and would give me a really, really strong position. I've also got another unit coming up here that I forgot to mention, and McClellan's there to give them orders. The intention here is they're going to park at this Beachley house. Well, I would like to be able to give them orders to tell them, march forward, go in. But I want to wait until there's pressure on that center there or that center falls back. And that's why Anderson moved. I could have moved Colquist and shifted him up the hill somewhat to help defend it maybe. But without extended lines and with this terrain, that just didn't seem possible. I need another full brigade up there. And I mean, Rhodes alone would have been big enough, but he's got his job cut out for him right there, it looks like. Although the Union's not moving yet. Now that's the thing. You don't have to attack until you're formed up. You just have to be pushing, towards your attack action. And for the 9th Corps, they have to roll Corps attack failure every turn because they've taken small arms fire. Once you're in a complex order, you never slip out of that complex order. Now, I cheat that a little bit, and it looks like line of battle follows that example, which is I can write one order that says attack this location, then settle down and defend it. I think I've already discussed that, though. Fortunately, on my way to hurrying to get to work, I failed to notice I had a couple big stacks of Confederate units sitting up here. They were supposed to come in on this turn. So I'm handling their movement, but I see I've got some problems. First of all, they marched in from here and overran the 9th Corps supply wagon. That's gone now. It's been just destroyed. So the 9th Corps no longer has its own supply. That's going to be a serious problem. And I also am seeing how the leader rules don't work under the RSS. Well, maybe they work. But the leader basically gets a free pass for being overrun, which is about to happen there. Under the regimental subsystem, the old CWB rules, leaders had to pretty much stack with something. Possibly a headquarters, but more normally with their own units for the divisional level units. But here under the RSS, there's almost no penalty for it. No leaders required to stack with any unit, brigade, and divisional. Remember, the Corps and Army leaders could run around on their own. Brigade and divisional commanders mark the center of the command radius. But the old rules just basically displace a leader, if I recall correctly, if he gets caught out of location. There's a lot of rules in this thing. So I don't remember any penalty though. For example, if a leader's in a hex, it takes possible losses. But if a leader's in a stack which is destroyed, he goes to the nearest stack of his command. Oh, here. He displaces to the nearest stack of his command. Yeah, that's the standard for the Corps leader. So he's going to get pushed out of the way. But the Confederates are going to get some nice shots on the rear of this. And I'll come back after that because that's going to change the whole dynamic. This is what happens when you don't have a bigger map than where you're maneuvering. Obviously, the designers didn't think about a potential maneuver back there was very likely. Or maybe they thought the Union would protect the road against a possible bushwhack. I'll just let it stand. It's the kind of surprise that comes up, you know. There's very little room in these games for surprise when you're playing with open units as opposed to with some kind of hidden movement. So, well, we got the effect of a surprise attack here. Give you a glimpse of what the Union is facing now. The initial fire wasn't that bad. The unit even passed its morale check. It's in column though, which is not great. But I can turn around and change formation. That doesn't create opportunity fire, I don't think, under this series. I know it does during the ACW, the GB ACW. Let me make a mistake in there, and it's not even just the enemy zone of control being right in the same next to the hex. I don't think that can fire. Not that anything else has a line of sight, but geez, I just looked it up, and I'm always closing the book right after I do something. Let's look at formation. Make sure facing doesn't do that too. I don't see how it could, but such changes, okay, some formation changes may occur in hexes adjacent to enemy units. However, those may initiate a free fire combat by all enemy units within range and LOS. On the formation of their choice. Let me make sure facing doesn't do that too. No, enemy zones of control have no effect on it. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. You wouldn't want to march up to someone in unlimber or whatever. So we're going to get a second shot at that poor unit up there when it changes facing. Of course, it could pull out of the hex, change formation, and then move back into place, which would prevent that fire from coming. So it's effectively the same. It's just to keep somebody from marching up in full column right next to someone and then changing formation. Okay, we swing to the Confederate turn. The Union turn's done. But let me describe what happened. First of all, I had to cope with this. So I swung some units around to defend myself. I can do that, but I've got to start trying to work my way into being back in command control. These guys are out of command control. I allowed them to take a quick defensive position right now, but they've got to start hunting their way back through the forest. They got artillery and everything, so it's going to be a really, really slow move. On the other side, well, I got the lost unit from that brigade, which is trying to make its way back to it. I don't know how I can do that. If I can bring my command back into play, that would be great, but there's just no way here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. You know, I'm out of command range with my corps headquarters. I probably should have pulled out a little bit more than I did, but there's not much I can do other than slowly squirming my way back. I'll tell you one thing I can do. I can not unlimber my guns, which I had done. So that's, I think it's just 1 for that. I'll take care of that in a moment. Those guys are going to pull out of the way there and try to push their way forward. They can't directly try to take this location, which would, you know, if they took Fox's Gap, that would fix things, but that requires new orders. They're just going to try to slip back into command where they were and lose their position. On the other hand, McClellan is ready to do something new that you haven't seen in this game. Pretty standard through the CWB games, though. Actually right in order. And these guys are making their way up. They took some fire from the artillery up here. Took a loss, actually. See that nasty bloodlust there? That's something else we're going to see for the first time during the rally phase. Most of the rallying is pretty automatic, but bloodlusts have to roll. Well, if they're not adjacent to an enemy unit, they don't have to roll at all. But here they'll make a quick roll. And he gets to keep it because he got less than a 43. But what's going on is kind of weird. You can see the Confederates had a unit pushed back, and the Union doesn't seem to have taken much loss. Indeed, they didn't. They actually, the 2 Confederate units ganged up on 1 Union unit, but those Union units are much, much larger. Look at the strengths on them. They're 10s, so they're getting the full 8 fire at range 1 means there's 16 fire points, whereas these guys are firing like 8 fire points. Now, why are they up there? Well, one, they have the column to the rear to shoot at, but also because of the changing from column to line in order to enter the hex. That's 1 movement point, and then 2 more points to stack. They just didn't have the movement points to charge that far coming in from a column stretching off the edge of the map. So it took some effort to get there. All right, on to the Confederate side of this turn, and this is baking into something a little different than I expected. All right, as we move into the 3:30 turn now, you can see another pile of Union units are coming in. There's still another big pile coming in here, but a lot of Confederates. Oh, that looks like a Union there. Ricketts, I think, is Union. It's hard to tell for me with this game. Somehow the Union isn't as distinguishable as in some of the series. Well, you can see Rhodes. He didn't get an order that helps him, but he can slide forward a little bit further and still remain in command, defending. He's not going to be allowed to push forward against the Union position. Got Anderson beginning to take his position on the hill here. These guns, you can see they shook things up a little bit for the Union there. And then this artillery drove some shots in against the Union guns that are trying to sneak by. I really need to change things up for the Union. They don't like this situation one bit, especially with the Rhodes coming in. Anytime an initiative will come, he can jump in there. So I've got to be rolling for initiatives for Reno to try to counteract that. This looks pretty good to me. That looks like it's going to make it up the hill. And yeah, it's going to hit the Confederates, but they're just, even with Anderson and Ripley there, there's just not enough. That looks pretty damn clear to me. In fact, overall, it just looks like there ain't enough Confederates to hold this, but the Union's doing stupid things. They would have been in so much better shape if they had continued hitting in Fox's Gap. Well, unfortunately, one of the factors of me stepping away for a little while is I forget what I'm thinking. So in this case, I started moving some Union units and went through most of the command procedures and then realized, ah, shit, I forgot this. But I was intending to give orders from McClellan to Pleasanton, and I'm going to go through that sequence, and then I'll show you what else happened. Although I only moved over there. McClellan, so first of all, I had some confusion because in the NBS version 3, I think they've added some new restrictions to the command rules. And I thought they'd be in here. I've played other version 3 rules from CWB, but I was expecting them to be here. And I don't see them. I'm not going to go with all of them, but I am going to go with one. There's a tendency to overuse in-person verbal orders, and a tendency to overuse Force 2 orders. Maybe it was over in... yeah, I remember seeing it over in... what the hell is it? Yeah, I'm lost there. The 3 Battles of Manassas. So maybe it's actually specific to that. But I didn't think so. Though I don't know. Anyway, because of that tendency, one rule that I'm taking from there, but I won't take the other one because I don't recall it right off my head, is that a general who assigns an in-person verbal order has to go back and touch base with his headquarters. He can't just run around assigning these to everyone he likes. So it's going to take me some time to convert. Now what you do is you look up your leader rating, and in this case McClellan's got a big 11 in terms of his command points because he only has a 1 leader rating. But that's sufficient to give one order very well. And then you count up the costs, and it has to match that. So 2 for oral, Force 3 puts it up, or Force 2 puts it up 3 more to 5. Complex is going to put it to 8. You write your order. In this case, it's going to be moved to the left flank of the 4-1-1. And here we're seeing how I believe orders can be written. Not everyone probably believes this. And then provide support even on an attack through Turner's Gap. I'm essentially expressing what I want them to do. What do I mean by provide support? I mean that it's going to be a complex order that it can engage. It's not meant to engage fully. It's not meant to go run up and necessarily capture Fox's Gap, although if that's the direction the 411 takes to get to Turner's Gap, that's fine. It's meant to operate in support, to provide maybe some skirmishing firepower. Sometimes I'll say in conjunction. Basically, I'm just linking and forming a bigger unit by doing this. That bigger unit's going to have some potential problems. First of all, if this thing takes fire, it could fail a core attack check, obviously. But also, if this thing fails a core attack check, it calls the attack off. And this has to move back to a defensive support position on the wing of the unit that it's been given. And similarly with conjunction. You make one lead unit responsible for the attack. Otherwise, what you end up with is piecemeal attacks, which sometimes you can cope with. If you can't put two units, especially in close conjunction with one another. But I like to specify my attacks this way because it kind of gives me I can break off with it a little easier. Some people might say that's cheating, and I could understand that. But this is how I've done it. Anyway, what else has happened so far? I'm only partway through the movement. But you can see most of the Union infantry has moved up. Basically, the idea is I'm pivoting my center of command around here. I'm pulling everything further up. So all the commanders are pulling their troops with them. I actually have, well, this is the unit from this command trying to make its way back there. It can't really engage trying to find that. And these guys are way out in front of their command, but they're in command range. I think I counted it out, but I'm not positive. I am still engaging here to try to get around by the shortest route, basically, to get back to my unit. That's okay because by my reckoning, because I'm under complex orders. I'll finish up the rest of the movement. I've got these guys to move. Oh, I didn't roll this, right? Okay, back to the command rules. So I've issued this order, what now? And this should have happened earlier. Well, now I add up my acceptance rating, which is going to be the two officers adding together. 1 + 1 is 2, great. I add the method, well, it's an in-person verbal, so that puts me up to 4. I add the force, that puts me up to 5. The type is complex, that puts me down to a 3. So now I'm on the 3 table, and I find my good old 11 to 66ers, and I roll. And we see what happens. And I get a 45, which says I'm going to be D5, which means I need a 5 or a 6 to accept. Now this table has changed a bit if you're used to the CWB table. He doesn't get to check that right away. Next turn, he can start trying to reduce the delay. Basically, he rolls a die. If he gets a 5 or a 6, he starts acting on it. And that's all we got. Battle begins to extend to more parts of the map. It's beginning to take longer and longer. Not just because of the amount of battle, the screw-ups I'm making too. But, okay. What we got? Well, one of the most exciting things, this area in here is pretty damn exciting. These forces are hitting that. That's become kind of like a little bundle that's being struck. The 5th Virginia Cav snuck up behind this unit and routed it with a flank attack. Got artillery fire disrupting the Union advance up here. That looks pretty hopeless, but that's good terrain again. You know, the Union's got to climb up that hill against those artillery positioned under the lead couple units. There's musket-armed units all over there, which the Union has to kind of run right up to, which is good for them. And again, up here, the Confederates have musket-armed units. Musket-armed units suck somewhere like here. I got rifles lined up there, luckily. But one thought was, gee, I should probably pull back to here, but I can't. This is bolted down with defensive orders. And, you know, even though he's got orders to defend the gap, all he can do is shift his forces, and he'd be leaving his command in place there. All right. Good boy. 4 p.m. turn is dawning now, or coming about. things have gotten really ugly. You can see the fighting's kind of getting more intense at this point. You can see here the Union's spreading out. I've never seen a wedge like this with this long tail on it before in a battle, but I'm in a hurry to get up here. I feel like I overwhelmed them in total force. But it's a hard time getting up there. The cannons and everything, the terrain, it's making it rough. You can see they're being driven back there. I think it's inevitable. Eventually these guys are going to come up through the woods and start putting pressure elsewhere. Over here, though, things have gotten really interesting. The Confederates have swung into place here. And performing some devastating fire, but at a cost. A number of their units have gone low ammo, which means that's sort of their last real shot. Now, once they get back, they can find the wing supply here. If they can get back towards that, they can recharge their ammo. But right now, they're in the thick of a fight, and they really can. The Union's in this weird position trying to escape this way where everybody's kind of routing. A lot of route buys where the Confederates get a second shot at units just because it's such a tangled mess in there. It's more or less what it looks like it should be, but you know, over in this hole there was a Union unit that ran back here and stuff like that. Meanwhile, the Union is also running away. And I'm not quite sure what orders I have for the Union. They sort of don't work. Skirt Confederate positions. Does that mean they have to kind of go through here? I know what I intended. I intended stay off of the Fox's Gap because that was defended. At this point, everything is kind of defended. I mean, their best goal would be to try to slip through here, but that's not really viable. The idea was to avoid this and potentially up here where there were other troops. And I feel like I can try to bludgeon my way through this and through roads. I also feel like maybe I could slide up here. I don't know. There's a lot of leeway in general, the way they tend to handle their orders. I feel a little bit iffier about that. I don't really feel like I could try to slip in here, although that's actually the way the orders are written. Over here we can see a pile of troops. Now I screwed up with the troops again and had some guys in the wrong stack. And when the papers knocked things over, I think I got kind of screwed up. Set McClellan up to give new orders. I'm not ready to launch though yet. I want to be in a position where these guys are threatened from back from Turner's Gap before I actually send them into the fray. So I'm going to hold up on that. Alright, I'll set up for the next hour, but it's bedtime for me now. Turns are definitely getting bigger. Okay. This is the 4 p.m. at the end of the Union half of the turn. Over here you can see the continuation and spreading out of that Union attack, and that looks really dangerous. What I want to do, if I can remember, I'm going to just shift Rhodes over there. I don't feel like I have any option. I've got to pull him out of there. That's a bad thing, because Jones's piece of his division here, and I got more coming in. Maybe that'll be able to handle it. We'll see. Jones's piece of the division made an attack up to try to cut off that lost Union division, actually. Their divisions are quite small, just a couple of little brigades. That's their standard organization. But you can see Union forces coming here. The forces here kind of shifted out, and they've linked up with the ones coming down the mountain. I think it's actually all even in command at this point, although I'm not sure. The trailing elements here probably aren't. So I'll have to keep shifting a little bit more. The artillery is kind of slithering its way down. We've got another division making its way up the road past these guys who haven't been able to move. The one problem, though, is in order to try to stay in command, I had an artillery here, and he had nowhere he could move. He took fire combat, took a retreat, and essentially surrendered. So he's gone. That's basically 5 guns I lost. Otherwise, though, the trade-off in firepower has been working pretty well for the Union because of their bigger units. I guess that's about it at this point. Alright, see you in the afternoon. As we push into the 4:15 turn, the Confederates are starting to have some significant problems. First of all, you can see that concentrated, very heavy fire that these bigger Union units, not really huge, but definitely bigger than most of the Confederate units, are able to apply. Routed the 2 guns away along with the troop, are disintegrating some of the troops on top of them. So this is beginning to look really weak. Hence, well, Jones, his division has orders to go defend Fox's Gap. And that seems like a reasonable thing to do with the Union closing in on there. They're actually complex orders, so they have the right to kind of push their way up there and then settle down to a defense. At the same time, I started heading Rhodes, but he's caught in a traffic jam here behind Jones to try to get up to this hill, or at least the area just, what is that, east of Turner's Gap. Hey, this one has a compass rose, yay. Somebody was discussing how things don't. No Confederate artillery fire whatsoever. Their only artillery setup were here that got chased away. Yeah, I might want to make some plinks. This actually should have been unlimbered by now. I want to, I don't want to do that. But nothing here of worth. The artillery's kind of slipping behind the woods where I can't see it. Over here, some interesting stuff happened. In particular, Garnett's brigade failed its corps attack stoppage check or whatever, and had to withdraw. But the rest of them are also pushing back. Remember, their goal is to defend Turner's Gap, not prosecute some attack against these Union units. So they're trying to set up a defensive line further back, and with Garnett falling back, they can do that as well. They're trying to take up pretty much a position similar to what Rhodes had, but maybe a little further forward to help link up, well, with Jones's rest of his division up here. I might actually send orders to include them back in my division under that. Certainly Garnett should. I've got to get Garnett under control somehow. He can't really do anything. He's locked down in a no orders status. And if he suffers a couple of turns of small arms fire, and he didn't take any this turn, in a row, he ended up doing something called an emergency retreat, which requires straggle checks on every single unit, and it also requires that he pulls back further. Pulling back further wouldn't be too terrible. He's in a horrible position right now with no ability to move. But what you can really see now is the Union, pushing forward and making headway here as well as up here. This I haven't started moving yet. I'm not quite ready to, but I want to. I could write them triggered orders. It's just kind of hard to do, to conceive of what I want to say. Do I want to wait until Union troops make it over the crest of this hill or something like that? That would really probably signify when I want to hit. So that's the kind of orders I'm going to write to launch an attack as soon as Union troops. Can they see? That would be kind of the issue. They could certainly see something, but I don't think they can actually see up here, and I kind of don't like triggered orders. They don't make sense if they don't have a line of sight to the unit they're triggered from. Again, I'm kind of playing fast and loose with the rules. Some people would probably take it very restrictive in one way. The triggered orders don't make sense at all. I've always liked them. They help me coordinate attacks, etc. Maybe too much. On the other hand, some people would say, well, it doesn't matter. You're relating it to some game state. If you're going to allow triggers, that's what you would allow. No, it's got to be something reasonable that the unit could follow. The game's all about being reasonable to me. All right. Another long turn coming up. Inexorable mass of the Union force versus the preponderant advantage of defense. At this point, the defense seems to have won over here. breaking up the Union forces quite a bit. Now, many of these were shaken because of retreats through and such, but you can see that recovers pretty quickly. Things look a lot worse the moment before you get to do your offensive fire phase. Over on the other side, though, the Union is destroying Garnett's units, which were unable to get out of the way completely, right? They have completed their first turn under no orders. If they don't figure something out within the next 2 turns, basically, they have to do an emergency retreat, which is bad. This looks hopeless here. And, you know, I'm sending roads here because this looks hopeless. It's a tough situation for the Confederates. And I think I could have taken Fox's Gap pretty easily had I stuck to the original orders instead of extending to these, and then been able to maybe move down and actually been in a better position. I don't think this outflank helped me at all, even though the Union seems to be getting pretty good results. The problem they have, though, is they're on a strict time limit here. It's already 4:15. 8 p.m., sure, but assaults at night are not good. And once we hit this blue stuff, I think we start seeing the disadvantages to the morale to attacking at night. And that really is going to usually be a disadvantage for the attacker, although it's a disadvantage for both sides. It's just the attacker usually has to cope with it more. What we haven't seen yet in this game, which is kind of interesting because mainly probably more my reticence to do it, is a close combat. I haven't engaged in one yet. The way the close combat works, and I never really explained this, when you move into the hex with your enemy, he gets to fire at you defensively. You get to fire offensively, kind of at the same time. It gives you a chance. You don't take your morale check. You take your casualties first, but you don't get the same chance of being driven away before your attack. So if you have a very powerful force, and this certainly would qualify, I think, making a close assault makes sense. The problem is the terrain's kind of lousy, so it's hard to get the movement points. It costs a couple extra movement points to move in and attack. The other thing is, there's a good chance you're repulsed on that attack. You have a real big penalty on your morale check, and your opponent doesn't have to make one the defender doesn't have to make one if the attacker is pushed back. He's rallied by it, essentially. So it's kind of it's a risky situation when you have this overwhelming odds. It feels like you don't need it, but that's precisely when you can most use it. A friend of mine used to use it in the NBS a lot, just with I want to make sure I get in there, you know, and get to do some damage as opposed to walking up next to you and getting driven away. This game's a little different because you can fire at range. That game, because of nothing but smoothbore muskets and the particular scale of it, it's a 1 hex range for firing. Not much to be added here in the Confederate half of the 4:30 turn. It pulled back a little bit here as well as up here. You see Jones continuing on his way, Rhodes heading up here. Right now, the weak spot looks like it's going to be here. I wrote some orders for Garnett. They'll get their next turn. I forgot. You're supposed to have a column for when the order arrives. I'm putting it in the sender column. There's so few orders in this particular game that it really hasn't been an issue. Usually you're rolling for initiative. They get one chance to accept those orders, and the chance of actually accepting orders immediately is almost nothing. But then again, I also rolled for initiative for them, and the chance of accepting the initiative is pretty low too. You can't kind of duplicate them, but you can try to do something different with the initiative. So I would have just been pulling back and maybe accepting the orders later. Not a lot going on though.